Got it.
On behalf of the City Council and the staff of Syracuse City, I'd like to welcome you to tonight's meeting. Will be both business meeting and a work session. We'll begin with our business meeting. I've asked Seth Teague, who was here at the anchor location, to offer a prayer, and then Corinne, if you'd offer the Pledge of Allegiance for us.
Our Father in heaven, we are grateful that at this time to come together as a city, residents and staff and officials to discuss the affairs of our city. We ask you to bless us and inspire us with the information we need to make important decisions that affect our residents. Heavenly Father, we are grateful for all that thou hast given us. We are grateful for this city, and we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Will everyone please stand?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of
America,
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have here at the anchor location, Seth Teague, Corinne Bolduc, and Dave Mon. Lisa Bingham is out for personal reasons, won't be joining us this evening. Jordan is joining us by remote from Baltimore, Maryland. So we do have a quorum in the meeting, and we do have a quorum in the anchor location. Lisa, are you here online?
Yeah, I'm here. Just not
good.
showing my face, and I'll just be here for the vote. If you can hear my weird voice, that's why I'm not going to show you anything else. So, but I'll be there for the vote, and then I'll just excuse myself.
Right, that's fine. And I know what you've been through. Did it myself a lot. So thank you. Council, I take a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
I have a motion by Corinne. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Seth. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that carries. Cassie, would you record that as unanimous? We're at item number 2, the public comment period. Having received nothing by email by 5 o'clock, let's go to those who are here with Zoom. Cassie, can you help me? I can't see anyone in the Zoom meeting.
Yeah, right now there's no one raising their hands.
All right, we'll close public comment for the Zoomie. Now here in this location, we only have staff. So we're going to move on to the canvas. Cassie, do you want to start that one?
Yeah, so let me hurry and share my screen. Maybe. Sorry, hold on one sec. The one that I was going to share just disappeared. Okay. Mayor and Council, I sent this email out to you guys earlier today that include the final canvas report from Davis County for our general election that was held on November 2nd. You'll see here that it shows the total registered voters in the city is 17,165. And we had 5,393 ballots cast for a turnout of 31.42%. So page 2 here gives the breakdown for the mayor race and then the city council seat race. For the mayor, Dave Mon received 2,907 votes. Michael Gailey received 2,460 votes. So Dave Mon is duly elected as the mayor of the city. For Syracuse City Council, Jordan B. Savage received 3,094 votes. Jennifer Carver received 2,310 votes. Paul Watson received 2,257 votes, and Brett Cragen received 2,188 votes. So the duly elected council members are Jordan B. Savage and Jennifer Carver. I also provided you with a breakdown of votes by precinct in the city, and then a report from the county that just showed the ballots that were not counted, and it just listed the reasons that they were not counted. If you have questions about those, we can go through that. Otherwise, I just am looking for a vote to certify these results so that we can report our election results to the Lieutenant Governor's office.
Okay. Lisa, thank you for joining us. Do you want to start the discussion here?
Sure, I think there's not much to say besides this looks correct, and we're grateful for all those people who chose to run and work so hard to be elected to the city, and want to thank so much those who put in such great efforts, and the things didn't turn out the way they had hoped, but we're grateful for their efforts. And I move that we approve this canvas result.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Seth. Any further discussion, council? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. The canvas has been accepted. Thank you, Cassie. We appreciate your work in the election. People don't really understand how much work it is for our recorder. Let's go to item number 4, authorize the administration to execute first amendment to the real estate purchase agreement with Fieldstone Construction and Management Service. This is a property, council, that's up by the cemetery.
Yes.
So Brody, do you want to lead us out here?
Yeah. So this is an amendment to our original purchase agreement with Fieldstone of the property adjacent to the Syracuse Cemetery. This amendment does two things. It lays out the responsibilities to pay for road improvements, our responsibilities, and Fieldstone's, as you see on the screen here. The area that's hatched out is what we would contribute. The estimate right now is $123,290, which brings me to the second thing that this amendment does. It withholds that amount in the escrow so they can draw on it as they construct it out of the sales price. So it just comes off the top of the sales price. So we see nothing. Right.
Jordan, do you want to lead us out with this one?
I'm willing to let someone there local go ahead and lead it out. I don't have a lot to say other than it looks good.
Good. Dave?
So my understanding was, I'm now confused by the red line, because my understanding was that we were not contributing except for just the leg on that. But now this makes it look like we're contributing the whole right of way.
So yeah, the area in red is just the outline of the entire easement across.
Okay, that's what I thought.
The hatch part.
And then the hatch part, the striped area.
So we are contributing the first part of the hatch part on the one side.
Half of the road.
Okay, that's where I was confused, because I thought we were only contributing, from our last meeting discussion, we were only contributing the leg that comes from the road that would be needed anyway.
No, because a portion of it to get out to 1000 West was within our right on the border.
We have to share that.
So we're
And that's what I
sharing half the
understood last
cost
time.
of the road.
The hatch mark was there last time as well.
Because we'll
It was, I
need,
just wasn't understanding
Yeah.
clearly which part was our responsibility.
because both of us need to get out to the road.
Right, we do. I just thought that since it become, now we don't maintain that road though, right? We only maintain the leg, the spur
Just
off
the
of.
leg.
Okay, so that brings me to my other part of the question. While I understand that we're paying for part of it, if we don't maintain it, why do we have to pay for part of it? Why is it not just their road?
Yeah, so that's going to be a Clearfield City road,
I know,
public road. The reason.
but you get why I'm asking this question.
Sure, yeah, and the answer is because we need access to 1000.
It's because it helps to service our residents as well.
In the original sales agreement, it said we would work together on getting the cemetery access to 1000.
So my concern is if we help pay for it, what if they don't upkeep it?
The city?
Their city, because it's their road.
Mhm.
It's kind of like the sidewalks that they built a long time ago over in Layton on Gentile. And they were in Layton, but it was so that our kids who lived in Syracuse could get up to where the crosswalk was. Even though it was entirely in Layton, there weren't any Layton children who were going to benefit by the building of those sidewalks. So we pitched in and paid for them, but now they maintain them. Same thing.
Yeah, if they don't maintain it, it'll just be a bad city road. Yeah.
All right, you get why I'm asking.
Sure.
I mean,
But I mean, that could happen anywhere.
did we
right?
ask the
That's-
question
anywhere.
if it's their road, if they would just pay for it, or do we just volunteer?
No, we discussed, they felt differently. They felt you guys need access, we need access. Let's share it.
Okay.
Yeah, and we ultimately needed them to play ball with us to get the exact lot counts and everything else. And so I feel like we've been good partners. They've been good partners. What's the,
They accepted the drawings that we submitted.
We think it'll be a good deal for them to pave the driveway while they're out there.
Okay,
That's good. We
And I
can
think that
capture
that'll
some
be a good
costs there.
discounted cost, because they're gonna be paving that whole subdivision. And this is just like a little
That's excellent.
stretch.
That'd be a lot cheaper for us.
Yeah, you may not like that answer, but that's the answer.
I get you. I understand why you're asking. I mean, it makes sense. I don't know that we can rewind it though.
if we don't ask the question, then it's not on the record, so.
So asked and answered.
Mhm.
Okay, so this has been in the works for years, so I'm glad to see it finally happening. So we can expand the cemetery if we need.
What we need.
Yeah.
We're
that's
down
what
to
I figured.
600.
Any comment from you, Jordan or Lisa?
No, I'm good.
And I think
Nothing.
that's- Okay. Lisa, will you let us know when you leave?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Well, I look for a motion.
I move that we authorize administration to execute the amendment to the real estate purchase contract for Fieldstone Construction.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Corinne. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye,
I,
All right,
Aye.
I heard all five. Would you record that as we had unanimity with that one? Item 5, mayor and council announcements. Let's start with those of you who are far away. Lisa, do you have anything?
No announcements. We just did start the Chamber of Commerce gathering for the food pantries in this area with the school. So I'm going to bring a box to the city, and if you see any of those, and we kind of have a list to go with each box of things you can donate, and it'll just be for a couple of weeks before we stop doing it. So kind of a quick, and I see you guys smiling at my face and how I'm speaking. You should see it in real life. It's hysterical. Anyway, so
I'm
that's-
laughing because I'm looking at the TV like it's you. Okay.
and I won't even give you the joy of seeing what I really look like. So just know that the sounds that my voice is making is exactly what my face looks like. Anyway, so that's the one thing.
Lisa, I attended a chamber meeting today, and there were assignments made to everyone in that meeting in Clinton, in West Point, and in Syracuse to put boxes everywhere else.
Oh,
So,
great.
If you'll
And then
take care
did
of city, if you'll take
did
care of
you-
City Hall, I'll do the rest in Syracuse.
Great. Did you
Okay.
get a piece of that cheesecake I brought?
I didn't, but they loved it because, but I'm a diabetic and I have to
Oh,
be true
yeah.
to my wife or I get nailed.
You can. Well,
on down.
good choice.
Okay. Jordan?
I haven't had much. We have the parks meeting coming up in a couple weeks. But yeah, no announcements other than just like I was already said, Cassie, a great job in that election. Went very smoothly.
Thank you, Dave.
no new announcements.
Okay, Seth,
None.
Corinne?
I have just one comment, and anyway, first a little side note. When my husband was selected as a captain in the Air Force, one of his sergeants asked him, do you know what they call a captain select? They call him a lieutenant. So The reason why I bring that up is because I've been informed that I've been disinvited to come to the budget retreat by Councilman Mon, who's not yet mayor. And I have an obligation to finish my service. So what say you, Councilman?
I haven't made any announcement of such.
Well, I was all informed that if I did attend, that you would be repeating the budget retreat in January, which would be a waste of staff resources and time. So
I was asked about having a meeting in December or in November, and I said that if you do, I'll have another meeting in January. That's accurate, but I didn't change the format of anything.
well, as far as like the budget retreat, I've been told that if I come and contribute, then you will repeat it.
I'm not calling any meetings until the next year. That's all I can say.
No, okay, but you're saying that you didn't disinvite me and the mayor.
No, I didn't change anything. I said that I would have a meeting come the first of the year. That's the point. So if you're making something else out of that,
Let me
you're
clarify.
reading into it.
Let me clarify, this is a strategy planning meeting in November. And because I felt like it would be a waste of staff's time to prepare for 2 meetings, Dave indicated to Brody that he would have another meeting. It seemed better for me to acquiesce and let him take charge of that first meeting, that meeting in November, which is proposed for the 30th. And because I'm concerned about staff time and I really am kind of a lame duck. I shouldn't be giving direction at this point. So Dave said that he would be having another meeting, and I thought, well, let me just turn this meeting over to him.
I see.
I told Brody today, I said, I don't plan it. I will plan one for after the first of the year.
Okay.
I did not
That's
uninvite
it.
you. I specifically said that you would still be welcome to come if we did it in this year.
That is a very good clarification because I hadn't heard anything from you either way. I had heard by other means. So I'm glad that we clarified this, and I'm glad that you.
I have
Aren't
not
taking
overstepped
charge.
something new.
Okay.
I'm not planning anything until
Good.
January.
Thank you. I just want to make sure that,
Yeah, well, thanks for that, because that wasn't me.
okay,
It seemed redundant to have 2 meetings.
It does to me too, but
And that's why I offered it to you in November.
and that's fine. I just want to make sure that there isn't some overstep, and I'm glad that we're acting like mature adults about this and that there's not a overstep. Thank you.
Okay.
I really do thank you for that.
I don't have anything other than what went on this afternoon with the chamber. Brody, do you have anything else? Do you? Okay, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I got a second.
Second.
Second by Corinne. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Hi.
Any opposed? Okay, we are now adjourned. Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Feel better.
I'm now calling the meeting to order in our work session. Cresta, we want to continue the discussion on the BMX and the pump track.
Yes, the last meeting, work session, we spoke and the council directed us to go and get cost estimates. As I was saying earlier, you never expect what you get. This is a nice surprise. But obviously the big purchase would be if we chose to do the land purchase. And we still haven't got the exact numbers back. And so right now it would be about 800,000, but we're hoping that it'll come in less than that if that's what the direction we choose to go. In the packet, we proposed and gave you the bubble, kind of the diagram of what we would expect. I believe this was 8 to 10 acres, right? Yeah. That we're trying to get. Why this purchase I think would be smart and to take it out of park impact fees is because, do you want to explain, Steve? He's got all of the, of why.
Takes time. So if you remember, impact fees have a time limitation to spend once you collect them. There's a 6-year mark, and we are pushing up into the 5th year of collection on our impact fees. So our recommendation is to use, at least for the land purchase, the 800,000 and impact. That would knock off one of those years and give us an extra year to spend.
It's also a goal that you guys set to do
Land
know,
acquisition.
lack of acquisition. That didn't come out right, but you know what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
So that's something that we could do there. There's also the road project that goes along. Where do you see that? Right there, it says the green where that
Mhm.
road is. So
Right.
that is not gonna come, we're seeing that it's not gonna come all out of park because that is a road that's been master planned. And as you guys can see, a lot of those are bigger than what we actually need. The lines and the storm drain stuff are bigger than what we actually need. And so we'll be able to have a more accurate number in the next meeting for you guys. But we can finish that road and it could be 356,000, or if you guys just wanted to do, you know, just the surface, the utilities, that's about $109,000 to do just the utilities. They're there, but that's with the road. Now, Brian suggested that that's not the best thing to do, because if you're going to be there and do the work, you might as well get it all done right there, but that is an option for you guys. And then you have your site improvements that you can decide whether you want to do it all now or whether you want to pull back. And you know, the parking lot was 159, 160. The restroom is about 230 and lighting is 150,000. But the overall with the 15% contingency would be 1.975 for the purchase of the land and everything that we would need for the BMX.
And then the pump track would
And
be
then
200.
up to 200. So you can get 50,000 up to 200,000 for the pump track. Mhm.
And that,
However you wanted to do that.
just as far as the diagram goes, that would still fit on the same footprint.
Yep.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Yep, we looked at it and we actually have had them place at Noah Place with the Rad Canyon over it or the Legacy, and there was plenty of room.
Mhm.
They've also been working and they've been able to acquire 8 bleachers that are 15 feet long with even the railing in the back, which was about $45,000. They got that from Salt Lake County, so they're still working towards.
So
getting us a-
Did they get it at a discounted price? Is that what you're saying?
No, they got them
Or-
donated.
Oh,
Yeah, they got them donated.
nice.
So,
That's awesome.
so that would be the cost, your diagram. And now we're just looking some direction from you guys of what you want to do going forward.
What's the timeline?
So they want obviously by spring, even if we can start something basic, but we also are working with the mitigation. And so they want it done correctly. So if we have to wait for them to get the mitigation, they were okay with waiting.
And I think that's more the direction of my question is, what are the parts that are out of our control as far as mitigation is one, UDOT's timetable of making an agreement with us is out of our, so what do we know as far as the stuff we have to wait on?
Well, I think what's risking having these guys operational by the spring is mainly the wetland issue.
Okay,
UDOT, I think we can get through it by February just fine.
okay,
At least authorization to use the land.
That's
with
awesome.
a promise to sell it to
Right.
us later.
Mhm.
So they
So-
won't like make us undo something.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
That's nice.
So yeah, that's really, I think, what we're dealing with. The trick is how do we get these guys in time for us to put in, to grade utilities, put in any kind of underground infrastructure so that we don't have to like tear up their track later, that kind of thing. So if, one thing we talked about is if you're good to go forward, then we can go through with more detailed engineering and see if we can locate the track outside of the wetlands and then work around them while we try to mitigate the rest of the property. If that's not possible, then they said that, if push comes to shove, they'll have to just wait a year.
Don't they have to do more engineering anyway? I mean, find detailed.
Can I ask a
Yeah.
question, make sure I'm understanding what you just said? If push comes to shove, they can wait a year,
Yeah.
because it's always been.
Yeah.
They want to be able to start, but they don't want to start because we asked how is it temporary? Could you do a temporary track? They would rather not do that. So if they
This is
have
too
to wait,
much.
it's too much work and too much money and they're getting all these sponsors. So if we have to wait for that, they're willing to wait another year to get that. But the biggest thing for them is they want a commitment from the city, because if not, they need to go to a different city and try to get this going.
Right.
process.
And then they'd probably also have loss on who
Yeah.
participates. That's hard to ever get them back again.
Well, they said that they would just, so you usually have your home track and you're there every
Yeah,
Saturday and you're waiting,
yeah.
but if they had to wait a year, then they would just go and compete in different tracks.
Okay.
So they wouldn't lose out on competing, and those that wanted to could, and those that didn't want. Of course, they want to try to get it in sprint, but
Sure.
but they know that if they can't, as long as they have a commitment from the city that we're going to do this, that they're willing to
Is
wait.
the wetlands 18 months? Is that kind of what we're looking at?
That's kind of what.
And when does that timer start? Do we have to submit an application and
Yeah, we have to do our delineation study, which we already have
from
the estimates and everything
Okay.
for, to get started.
Okay.
So if you give us direction to move forward, then we'll have that consultant start working on the delineation.
So really the
tomorrow.
question is, do we want to press and have this actually happen? Make a formal commitment?
Yeah, and we're thinking we can maybe get the MOU with the BMX club ready for the December meeting so that you can vote on that.
Mhm.
Right,
So that they know that the city's committed, so that they
Right.
can start raising it.
a true
So-
formal commitment.
I think that one way or another, the land is valuable for park usage. So I would be comfortable going forward with the purchase agreement. I think that I'm comfortable sharing an intent with BMX to work something out with them. What I'm uncomfortable with is the details of what wetlands may present, because that's always a wild card.
Yeah.
And so I would be very comfortable going forward with intention but I want to hesitate to commit the fine details. Like if they have to move the track a little bit of a direction to work with what wetlands tells us. I mean, of course we'd have to. I just want to I don't want to have to come back and say, I know we signed this, but now we have to amend it. I'd rather only sign the part that everybody needs, that we're sure of, and let the other part be worked out, if that makes sense.
So maybe like do it in phases almost.
Yeah, if
So
that's okay.
So pretty much the land purchase, go
I would,
ahead with
and
it,
the
pursuing
intent
that.
to,
Mhm,
and the
Pursue-
intent to host.
mhm, mhm.
Yeah,
And then pursuing do we have to be the ones that initiate the study on mitigation?
I think we do.
So then that needs to go ahead as well,
Yeah.
no matter what we do.
Yeah,
And
and I'm
that's
okay
the
with that
5,000.
part.
Right.
It's under 5,000.
But
It's
I'm
4,900,
hesitant to
but-
commit other resources until we, because we may move lines, or we may, I don't want to start pricing things that are unknowns. Not that we're not going to do something, it's just, I'd rather know what it is. That's just my feeling.
Do we feel like with the MOU and by December, because I really feel like we can't keep
Delaying.
for them, because they're holding off on doing anything and getting
I think it just
sponsors.
depends on how much.
And there's
of
other
the
cities that
MOU
are,
has to
could be
include.
interested.
If the MOU says intention to host, I'm good with that. If the MOU says I have to have this configuration on this section of land and this, because then we might have to say the mitigation is going to alter that.
I
So
can't imagine when they
They-
know that there's water that they would do
Really, the
that.
MOU was about what we're talking about here, about the infrastructure, getting the utilities, getting the restroom and the consent,
So
eventually.
you're saying that the MOU would have to include intent of what we would supply.
What we would supply and then what they would do. So, because they're gonna, and what they're gonna maintain, because they're gonna build bring in all the dirt, they're gonna bring
And
the
that's really
fence,
good to know up
the bleachers, all of
Yeah.
that. They're gonna take care of all of that. So that's what they're gonna take care of, and this is what we're gonna take care of.
And that
So-
needs to be spelled out.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
to me, that's the part I'm being cautious about, because I need to know how much of a financial commitment that is.
Yeah.
So the question about doing it by December is, at what point do we have to have lights? Because the electricity's there, but how much am I gonna have to spend on lights and how soon?
Well, and that's the thing, they can adjust. They've talked about adjusting, they can go, like they said, from the small to big. So if they don't want to put the lights in right now, we can wait to put in the lights. They would just have to adjust when they do it to the day. The reason why they do it more at night is it's cooler. So I think
I'm
they
not
can adjust
against the
that.
lights. What I'm
Yeah.
against is committing to them before I know what they cost. And-
Yeah.
The timing.
And because we may find, and here's kind of the other dynamic, we might find that there's a way to do the lighting that for the same cost of doing maybe what they used to do, we could do a double post and just a little bit more cover the equestrian track too, and benefit two people with one,
Well,
move.
that's what happened with Founders as well.
Yeah, and those are the type of things I'm trying to make sure we iron out before we authorize the money, so that, and before with the MOU, I just want to make sure the MOU includes what we can do. I don't want to make promises
So Dave, is your hang up though that the wetlands potentially could turn this whole project upside down?
No,
Or
it just
that
could
it would?
alter the shape of it.
So you're still wanting to commit to the BMX track?
I am.
Okay,
Well,
okay, I just
then
wanna
we
make
can
sure.
fully do an MOU with saying that it will fit within the wetlands. I mean, or outside
Can
of
we
the
craft it some
wetlands.
way?
And I
that
think that's all they
protects
want. Like when we talked to them, what
Because
they wanted
then
was a
it's
commitment
up
that you're
to
saying, we
them.
want to go forward with the BMX. So
Yeah.
they don't have to go look for another
Then
place.
it's up to
No,
them. to
I'm
figure
okay
out
with that
how
part of
to
it.
do
The bottom line is, do we want a BMX track in Syracuse?
I think
Yes.
we can be a host. I just want to work out the details of how can we benefit this and the neighboring site at the same time, if possible.
And we have started already looking into that, like with the road millings and
Yeah.
how the design is. You guys didn't kind of see the design that they had put together for like the horse trailers to park, and Brian even kind of put in where we could put like, because one of the things that they wanted was a warm-up arena.
Mhm.
So we are looking into that. This is not
Okay.
just.
And that's
for the
just
BMX.
it. I'm trying to figure out how we get all of it, maybe a little, maybe we spend just a little bit more, but we get like two big,
Yeah.
Yeah.
things accomplished. That's all. We don't know that yet. So I'm trying to make sure that whatever we sign doesn't prevent the other part from happening.
Doesn't sound like if we're asked
No,
them to
wait,
design it,
but
then we
that's the
should be
question.
within them.
And,
Yeah.
and this is the location that you guys want.
I'm okay
moving
with that
forward.
too.
So then let's proceed.
Okay. So can we?
Yeah.
You want to discuss this, or do you want it on a consent agenda? For,
I don't know what
I
else there
wanna
would be to
s-
discuss.
I'm not sure there is either,
Couple
but I want to, you're talking about documents I have not yet seen. So You're
You
talking
might wanna
about-
discuss and then
I
vote.
kind of want to discuss that part
If
of
there's
it.
more information.
Of like where
great.
you want to see kind of where it could all fit
Yeah.
and that, and then
Well,
also.
with the sort of the phase
What
one
the-
MOU.
And what you're talking about is would be included or wouldn't be included. I just don't know. So I'd like to know.
We also, I think, could get some better numbers in the sense of this is what, better numbers in the sense that this is what the parks lines would actually
Sure.
cost.
Yes,
And this is what the park, so you guys can actually
Agreed.
see what
so.
funds
That
are
would
gonna come
help.
out of.
That would
Yeah,
help
that
as
was
well.
my next question.
Cassie, would you put this on the
Where's the
agenda for
breakout?
put this on the agenda for our December business meeting, for discussion and vote?
I forgot, can I just say one thing? Because we did the 800,000 and the other, we were gonna look at taking out of the capital with the land sales that we've had with parks. That's what we have discussed, so if you're wondering where that is.
Really, really quick note that I wrote on the comments here. I looked into environmental analysis and or EIS statements. For an environmental analysis, they usually start out at $100,000. And an EIS starts out at $1 million. So good way to not get business to come to Syracuse would be instituting those.
So typically, yeah, there's different
Those are federal
terms.
ones.
Yeah, there's different terms that people use.
Mhm.
EIS is an
Environmental
environmental
impact statement.
impact
Mhm.
statement that is part of the FEMA process, federal.
Right.
Anytime there's a major federal action,
Right,
they have to go through the NEPA process, not FEMA.
yes,
And an environmental impact statement is part of that, where they have to look at all the environmental factors and all the different alternatives
right,
that you can make. And then you have to select one of the alternatives that has the least environmental impact for the benefit you're trying to make.
right.
That's not required under city
Ordinance.
projects in the state of Utah. Can you do them? Yes. Are they required? No. You can do a abbreviated version of them of the federal process, which would cost a lot less if you so choose.
Which is an EA. And that's
But yeah, that's
100,000.
it's up to the city if you want to go through that for certain types of projects.
FYI.
Thank you. Thank you for the research.
No problem.
Thank you.
All right, let's put that on the agenda, Cassie. All right, Garrett. You got 45 minutes, Garrett. We're holding you hostage. Can I do that, Austin?
All right. Let's get you sure.
Maybe I should stop sharing.
I studied since last meeting.
First time. I took a course.
2 weeks in a row. And I figured it out now. Mayor and Council, thanks for the opportunity again tonight. It is a pleasure to be here to present to you and to our community the police department's quadrennial review. Just a reminder of our guiding principles in our department: pride, accountability, cooperation, and excellence. And we use the motto on that Syracuse Police Department is setting the pace. One thing I always draw attention to on this is that it doesn't say we did set the pace, it says we are setting it, which means it's always a constant, ongoing process. So we're going to go over our kind of review of our annual reports, some of the police department expectations, our statistics, some efficiency measures, future considerations, and then we'll get into whatever questions that you may have and want to discuss. So first of all, our annual reports, this is just a reminder that we do one of these every year. They're on the city's official website, can be located on the police department's tab, and then navigating to the annual reports link on the page. So this will be our, I think we started in 2016. So okay, so on this one, this would be the council's vision statement number 1 for the department, which is that we are well-trained and a professional police force. So the training hours, these are an average of 2019 and 20. State requirement is 40 hours. Our officers average 76. I put the asterisk there to show you that this information does not include things like training for canine handlers and SWAT, new officer training, or college courses, because those could really kind of inflate that number, and it would appear that we were getting a lot more training per officer than that. First one on it, I'll let you know that I got information yesterday that I completed all the requirements for my master's degree in management and leadership.
Nice.
So
Congratulations.
thank you very much. I want to I throw that in there to give a shout out to Brody for all the support and help that he gave me through that process, and then to the city by way of the city council for the benefit of tuition assistance, which is certainly something that helped in that process. So thank you very much.
But you did all the work, so congrats.
Sergeant Johnson graduated from the FBI Command College. I was able to arrange for expert level active shooter response training for our SWAT teams in Davis County. This was a 4-day course, didn't cost us anything. It will be used as the basis for a training course intended to ensure that all of our officers in the county have standardized and practical training in this area that I think is a vital concern to our communities. So it would mean it doesn't matter where they come from, Bountiful or Sunset, they're going to have the same response tactics. Sergeant Handy, Officer Mohar, and Officer Wimmer, they attended a 3-day criminal interdiction training, which basically covered things like combating the opioid epidemic, dealing with threats that may be facing different communities, steps criminals take to avoid detection, and then recognizing indicators of criminal behavior and hiding areas in vehicles. Chief Rogers, Lieutenant Anderson, and we were able to attend the International Association of Chiefs of Police Conference in Chicago, which, by the way, if we look at return on investment, that's where I got the information for the training that we brought here for the SWAT teams that will be the basis of our active shooter training in the county. Detective Beam attended the National Public Information Officers Conference in Florida. Sergeant Carter put together an amazing 2 nights of very intensive emergency vehicle and high-risk encounters training out on Antelope Island at night, which was a really cool experience. And then our crowning achievement was achieving accreditation. We were only the 12th department in the state at the time to achieve that level of professional recognition. Vision number 2 is that we are responsive to crime and other community issues. So the certificate you see on that from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, we're only one of a handful of agencies in Utah that have met their high standards to be a member of their Missing Kids Readiness Program. So by demonstrating leadership and making a commitment to that advanced level of training and preparedness, we certainly hope that we have made our community proud and communicated that protecting the lives and safety of those kids is one of our top priorities. As we get into some of the statistical stuff, you'll notice that for the most part, our crime statistics have remained steady or decreased. Our Rad Kids camp class, which we had to cancel in 2020 due to the pandemic, we brought it back in 2021 and we saw a huge increase. So it was 50% over the average enrollment in 2018 and 2019. So it was really cool to see those kids out and engaging with the officers again and learn some very important skills. And then 80% of our members now have valid crisis intervention training certification, which is training that helps them learn tactics and skills to deal with people who are going through a mental health crisis. Vision 3 and 4, I always tie these together, where you're asking us to be courteous and service oriented and to be part of the community and respected by the public. So one statistic on this that I typically share with you is our use of force. So the media and things you would see would have this portrayed that we are doing this daily and it's a constant thing that's going on with officers, when in fact in ours it is used in 0.37% of all police cases. Then referring to our community survey, which was completed just this year, 97% of respondents on that survey who said they had had involvement with one of our members in the past year felt that they were dealt with in a professional manner. And 70% of respondents said they felt safe everywhere in Syracuse. And then we put a little picture there of one of our officers participating in a cancer awareness walk that happened at the high school. It was a pretty good thing for him. This slide is our new organizational chart and brings in some of the restructuring that we did when we got moved the sergeants, the 2 sergeants a couple months ago when Lieutenant Skinner retired and replacing that officer. It also shows the pending traffic unit that we're working on right now.
Perfect.
This one gives you our activity volume by year, and I just left up, it basically gives you a 5-year run, so you can kind of get an idea of what that looks like. The ones that I would draw your attention to are 2020 and 2021. Understand that while that looks like a pretty drastic drop, this is high pandemic years, especially 2020. We had to take some pretty drastic schedule measures to make sure that our officers were protected before vaccines were available. And so, we purposely did not have them involved as much in officer generated activity as typical. So
Makes sense.
this slide is a 5-year trend slide, which basically shows you the call volume by day of the week. And I would point that the 2020 is simply through the end of October. But what you'll see is that largely those trends are consistent across all those years to show you, what days we're looking high on. And 2020, 2021, I mean, the drop on Fridays, all I can tell you is that, well, people didn't really have anything to do. So they stayed home, I guess.
Social distancing.
Yeah. This is our case volume by time. Again, a 5-year trend, 2021 through the end of October. And you'll see that these trends do hold pretty consistent through all of those years.
I think at the end of school getting out at that time.
No, that's 4 in the morning.
Oh, is that 4?
Yeah.
This is 1400.
Depends on what you're looking at.
Well, down at the bottom, right?
Yeah, the
14,
2 o'clock
1500?
looks like the biggest spike.
Am I missing something?
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about the low mark.
No, the
The
high
high
mark.
Okay,
Kids are in
I'm with
school.
you now, yes,
That's when school gets out.
yeah, it very well could be, yeah,
And when
people are
crime
starting to get off work.
And they mess up in the traffic.
Yeah. Yeah, so I apologize for that.
I don't know where.
All right, so this one is a crime comparison according to the BCI crime reports and crime in Utah reports. Now, for these comparison cities, we are using ULCT's category of high income residential cities, and we're only comparing to cities that have their own police departments. So in these, what you're going to see is that those crimes against a person, those involve things like sex offenses, assaults, kidnappings, homicides. The property, things like robbery, burglary, theft, arson, vandalism, fraud. And then the ones against society would be things like drug offenses and weapons offenses. So I would draw your attention to the fact that I said, look, these have mostly maintained or gone down. Also draw your attention to the crimes against society. Those are mostly the result of proactive police work. So while you see ours way up there over it and start to wonder what's happening, this is really the result of proactive police officers.
So they're just catching it more often.
Exactly. Okay, so crimes per thousand in population, again, compared to those same cities and using the information from the BCI Crime in Utah 2020 report, this is what it would look like in our crimes per thousand against those comparison cities.
You said this was just crimes overall, or this was crimes?
This is all crimes per thousand. So it'd be everyone that we talked about on that last slide would be combined into this. So we point back and say, look, since 2017, if not before that, to be quite honest, but that's this was just kind of the time that I was covered in this for you. We have been recognized consistently as one of Utah's safest cities, and last year we finally bumped Kaysville out of that #2 spot. So it's pretty sweet. Okay, so this one, officers per thousand in population. Again, this comes from the Crime in Utah 2020 report. A couple of things that I need to explain to you with this. So BCI takes this information, that it's as the number of sworn officers, and it's for a snapshot in time. Okay, so it shows the number of officers actually employed by the agency at the time they make the request, not the number that is actually allotted. So as an example of this, BCI could ask City X on this for its number of sworn officers on October 31st, which is typically when they ask for this information. City X could report that they have 35. That's how many are currently employed, but it doesn't account for the fact that City X maybe is allotted 40 and they just haven't been able to fill those 5. Okay. So when you look at this, this is again across that ULCT high income category. But if you were to compare this to our Davis County agencies, and for this purpose, it will be only municipal agencies. I'm not going to use the sheriff's office. They would have a tendency to really skew this, I think. But we would show in Davis County as the lowest number of officers per thousand. The average in Davis County being 1.06. Again, that can be skewed. Some of the smaller cities, for example, West Bountiful, they may only have 5,000 residents, but they're going to have 10 officers. Okay, so I mean that can skew that a little bit. But for reference, if you use a population of 33,000, we would be needing 9 officers to reach that average. For this mutual aid slide, for the purpose of this slide, we're going to call mutual aid, meaning that we had a law enforcement call happen in our city and we literally had no officers available to take it, and another department had to come in and take it for us, and then the reverse for mutual aid given. So in 2020, 18 times that happened, 13 we went out to help. In 2020 through October, we received 16, and I'm sorry, I don't have the mutual aid given. This is not a report I can run. The Spillman administrator for the county has to run this for me, and then it takes a little bit of processing. And due to some things going on in his job, he wasn't able to get me this in the past week. So, but I don't think you would see that to be a whole lot different percentage-wise.
pretty close to 2020 then.
Yeah, I would think so. Budget comparison on this one. So again, this is back to the ULCT comparison cities. What I would note on this is that this slide may be a little misleading. This is total budget. A couple cities I couldn't figure out their operational and they didn't report it back when I asked. So this is the total budget, but if you were to put this into perspective, that's going to look like ours is about 3.6 million and about 12% of that is operational. So the rest of it being budget, or excuse me, salary, benefits, stuff like that. Okay, so the amount that the department actually has discretion over spending and that the council allocates to get the mission accomplished is actually a very small percentage on that. Budget per officer, again, this takes into account that the numbers that we use for the BCI's 2020 slide against the number that was just shown. But as I said, this doesn't dictate the operational piece. Specifically, this is the entire budget.
This shows it has an interesting perspective to it, because if you look at all of your other slides on numbers, West Bountiful was extremely high, but when it comes to operations, it looks like they don't have significantly more than the rest of us because their spending per officer is shown as so low. So it's not that they have so much more money, they just have to spread it around a lot thinner.
Could very well be. I don't know what their percentage of like their operations to their overall budget is.
It's interesting though, that when you get to per officer, it suddenly drops to the lowest where they've been the highest when numbers of officers.
Sure.
That doesn't speak well to the way they treat their officers, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I again, if I knew what the operational portion of it was, I think it could give us a little more detail, but without being able to give it to you across all of them, I felt like it was going to be sort of a misleading slide.
Okay.
And it could be that they're turning over their fleet, who knows?
Okay, so now we'll get into some future considerations, and we'll talk about obstacles that I see for retention. So first of all, the anti-law enforcement sentiment that is perpetuated through some politicians, not this council by any means, and the media. There are less young people interested in law enforcement, which means we see fewer entry-level candidates. And part of the problem is that this doesn't just impact us. This is every police department is seeing this same problem right now. Then you get into some background issues. So one of the problems that you see is that when the pool is so small, seemingly the amount of background problems that can come out of that pool actually increase, right? So where we may have seen only 2 applicants, we had 20 people show up and only 2 of them might have had background problems. Those two still may be showing up, but they're showing up out of only 4 applicants. So it's getting a little bit harder based on some of the background things that come up, even though Post has taken steps to open up the candidate pool to some degree.
Really?
Yeah.
So changing a few of their requirements then?
Yeah, I mean,
just like
marijuana used to be sort of a death sentence, and that's more or less long since gone. So
okay.
I'm not sure I want that public.
It is public. They put it out there. I mean, it's in their requirements for it. So
kids don't worry.
Yeah. So some limitations on our ability to attract lateral hires, which when you combine the low number of entry-level officers and a lack of ability to attract laterals, again, that's one of the reasons that I push so hard trying to keep the ones that we have. That has to be our foundation in anything we do. In the benchmark information, so I know you've seen the slide from Brody, and there's a couple things, we'll probably get into that later, maybe in its own piece, if that's something that the council wants to do. But that the information in that, it's either incomplete or in some circumstances incorrect. And it has nothing to do with what Shauna did, right? She took the information that was available to her. But when we started to explore that, and we sent out some grandma requests, or we were seeing the differences in postings, that's where it really started to get off, like we explained last week, okay? And so we haven't seen all of those grandma responses come back, even though by now they were all by law due.
Oh.
For reference, one agency in that list on the PO1s that I showed you, the difference between what the HR system said and what their administration told me is 33%. Okay. That agency did not respond to the grandma request. So as you start going up the scale through all the other ranks in the department, you're not seeing that information. Okay, you're getting like the information that was straight out of the HR. You are not seeing what the current information really is. What I could logically tell you is that they didn't just raise the bottom of their pay scale 33% and leave everybody above that in place. Otherwise, they would have a mass exodus through the compression, right? But I can't give you that information right now. And I know this is going to be a tough one for the council as we start looking at what do we do with the policy, maybe not just police department, but citywide. I don't have a great answer for you, but I can tell you that this is going to take a little more exploration to figure out exactly what we're facing with this. Some agency hiring incentives are also working against us. Things like hiring bonuses and retention bonuses, relocation assistance, shift differential, education assistance or increases, 401k and a match. Some cities are putting in additional retirement contributions for their tier 2 officers. And then we've started seeing a lot more of step compensation systems come in, so people have an idea of being able to place where they're actually going to be. The increase in staffing needs. So our comparison that we just talked about a little bit ago through not only just the ULCT, but the Davis County cities show that in comparison, we're understaffed and we need to hire several officers to meet what our needs really are within the city. That information, again, obtained through those annual reports through BCI. If you go back to 2012, we were at 0.68 per thousand. And if you go to 2020, we have now gone up by 0.06 with all those additions that we added in there. So the 5 officers or 5 or 6 that it's been since 2015. In actuality, because our population was increasing so fast, that moved us by 0.06 per thousand. We get into officers leaving for other departments and retirements. Now, we can't predict people leaving. I asked you last week essentially to put in place this stopgap or a down payment, if you will. My hope in all actuality was what we were going to do is make it harder for people to make that decision. Love the place you're at, get a little more show of the money, and maybe we just make it harder for now. That's really what we're striving to do. So again, thank you for paying attention last week and for helping
Please
us out.
tell me it worked.
Well, everybody leave it a week.
You haven't had any new requests to retire.
No, not yet. Retirement though, we do have 4 who can currently retire and 2 more who will be eligible within the next 16 months. Some other retention issues. So this is the cost. I like to call this the cost of losing our own. So it's more than just the person who walks away. We have the time costs, which result in the loss of productivity. It can be a negative morale issue, but it's also the trainer that you now take off the road to essentially train this person.
Right.
They're not going to be as productive as one officer would have been, right? There's a loss of proactivity for the exact same reason. And that can lead to a reduced level of service, which basically just means, look, sometimes people are going to have to wait longer for the things that aren't urgent. Okay. There's an organizational cost. We lose that knowledge that they've gained. We lose the relationships that they've built and the bonds that they've built with their peers. It has a tendency to lower morale as they start to see people leave. It can increase the risk simply by the fact that maybe you end up with less officers available during the high times, as I showed you on that scale. It can increase the danger, both through maybe a manpower issue or a staffing issue, and the fact that you have younger officers who maybe don't quite yet make the same level of decisions that you would have from a veteran officer. And then the increased poaching. And by this, what I mean is once somebody leaves, what they're doing is trying to reach back and bring all their friends with them and tell them how great everything is on the other side, right? is not always that way, but
You
that
know,
definitely happens.
On this bullet point, you're starting to make a case that the fact that your department likes each other so much is the problem.
They are a good bunch. They get along
They are a
very
good
well.
bunch.
Yes.
Let's not turn that negative.
Yeah, exactly. So some of the hard costs are the money that are wasted on training, the new training money that we have to spend on that person. We have to pay our FTOs a little more to go through that extra responsibility of training. And then we increase our overtime by the fact that we have fewer bodies. So as just an example, in 2015, we built a spreadsheet where we estimated the costs that were involved in losing an officer and then hiring a new officer with no experience as a replacement. We included things like onboarding costs and hiring, equipment replacement, some of the loss of investment in training, meaning if we sent them to a course, we kind of figured that that's money we lost, and then cost and separation. And that money conservatively was a little more than 51,000. Using that CPI calculator, that would be about 60,000 now. So in this one, I try to bring out, this is kind of a concept of Maslow's hierarchy issue here. Okay. So I'm trying to bring out an information as to why officers leave. Now, I will admit this is sort of a compilation of several different resources that I put together here, but the green areas, these are the areas where I think we are doing well for our people. In the orange areas, these are areas where I think we have some ability to improve, or we have a limited amount of control. So danger, for example, I don't have any control over society getting more dangerous, but I do have some control over making sure our people are well trained and have good tactics and can respond to that level
Can
of
you
danger.
define to me whether, when you say danger, are you suggesting that it's a dangerous place, or are you suggesting that maybe they seek a more challenging place to police? You're saying that our
Neither
danger level
necessarily.
is-
What I'm saying is that
It's
I
uncontrollable.
cannot have any control over the danger that they face.
So you can
right?
do some control, but not full
Yeah, so as an example, I mean,
Because
you
I
said is
consider us
Syracuse a dangerous
less,
place? No.
I consider it a less dangerous place to serve.
Yes,
Probably anything can happen anywhere.
that's the
But-
big point.
Right, but per likelihood or incident, we have less of the dangerous incidences here than say West Valley.
But yeah, but I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean that your probability of it happening is
No,
less.
it's
It's just that it doesn't happen as much, right?
Yeah, I don't want a
So-
guy saying, well, I'm gonna have one every night I serve,
No.
but I at least think that the appeal is it's probably not gonna happen every night.
So what you're saying though is that what
It
you
could.
can control and what you can't, you can only control so much of training for danger. And
Exactly.
then there's
So-
going to be things that are going to happen that you can't.
Yeah, I mean, if you take back our officer involved shootings, right? I couldn't have done anything to prevent the
Yeah.
person from engaging in that dangerous activity that brought this to the officer's
Right.
attention, right? But what I can control to some degree is giving them the tools and the tactics and the knowledge,
So
the ability to be able to defend
so
themselves.
you're kind of saying this will always be in this orange
I think it
zone.
will, because
forever. You can't change.
there's one portion of it I can't do anything
It
about.
won't move to green ever.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then in the red, these are areas that are frequently mentioned as reasons officers leave a PD or the profession, quite frankly. And yet, as the PD, I have minimal to no control over this. Okay. And I would also note this isn't necessarily in any order. So one of the future considerations that I think we need to look at is a master officer position. At least 10 of our comparison cities have this program. And again, that's based on the ones who have responded to grandma requests. The range for the master officer, when you compare it to PO3, it's about 8%, seems to be kind of the average. So our 5 of advancement, that's in the wheelhouse, is the way I would look at it.
Okay.
And the years,
Would this fit then also with your step? You mentioned doing steps for pay as well, something similar.
yeah, I mean, it's interesting when you look at it. There are some agencies that it seems like they're literally moving away from like PO 1, 2, and 3
Right.
and master officer. And what they're doing is implementing more of an officer with steps.
Right, similar to military does.
Yeah.
Okay.
It seems that the range for advancements from these cities is right in that 8 to 10 year range, which I think is absolutely appropriate. That's about the time we should consider that somebody has really started to gain mastery of their profession in this. My guess, I can't really give you an estimate in salary, but what I can do is tell you that my estimation right now is that this would impact maybe about 9 of our officers. There could be a
It's a
potential.
pretty high percentage.
Well, this is the advantage, and that would be by July of 2022. So I mean that's this coming year. The reason that I give you sort of an estimate is because the information that's readily available to me is the day that I hired them, but some of them could have had lateral experience in the jail or something like that before that we've counted to their time, and I just don't have that available in sort of the spreadsheet that I have for the advancements. Master officers. So this provides a career progression step. So you get officers who reach this level and either they're not interested in promoting, that's just something that they don't want to do. They like working the road, right? Or you get an officer who is interested in promoting, but that opportunity just hasn't been there yet, or they haven't been successful in their tries. Okay. So this gives them a career progression beyond just that PO3. As a senior officer, they serve as an advisor to the supervisor. They also serve as a mentor to the junior officers on their crew. They typically have knowledge and experience that's gained through like a previous specialty unit or assignment, something like detectives or K9, traffic, SWAT, that kind of stuff. Field training officer. They may supervise a unit in the absence of a supervisor. And this would be the highest advancement level obtainable by our police officers, and it's equivalent in many ways to a rank of a corporal. They are working members of the units and will carry on all expected duties of just a normal police officer too. So it's not a promotion. Moving into just some of the things that we're facing in our city. I love the drawing or the map of the Arts Academy down there. And the statement at the bottom, that was actually from a Salt Lake Tribune story in March of 2020. So future considerations, we want to complete the traffic unit, which, as you know, we need basically one more position to do that. And we may be potentially asking you for an additional officer on top of that in FY23. We also want to consider a part-time crossing guard coordinator. So that picture I just showed you for Syracuse Arts Academy, when we went down and met with their administration,
Yeah.
that literally will take 6 crossing guards. It's like an entire crossing guard unit just for that one school. So this crossing guard coordinator, it's not like they're not going to have evaluation responsibility or that. It's more just like the direct everyday coordination of getting those crossing guards there. I estimate that likely range being in the range of like $15 an hour, and it would likely come from our current pool of crossing guards. And then we'll probably be looking at about 2 more officers in FY24. I realize this starts to get pretty ugly with the staffing, but we kind of need to really start making plans on how we're going to do this, whether it's every year to start taking a bite out of it before that freeway gets here and things really start taking off on us.
Yeah, it'd be a lot easier to eat.
One of the things, that we kind of lose track of when we talk about, hey, let's have an officer. Well, if you give an officer in July, we push really hard to try and get them in the academy in August. They complete the academy in December, usually FTO in late March or April. So an officer given to us in July is working on their own in April. I mean, it's a long turnaround. So. Okay, that's all I have for you, Council.
Okay.
Any questions or anything you would like to discuss?
Yeah, we've got some things to settle in the future with compensation and ways to fix this. I believe that the last 2 years, because of the lack of interest in the profession, which that's another challenge. We just separate that and say, we need to do something to help encourage the profession. I think the community support is there, but we may actually have to do something more to promote the nobility of your profession. Just to help kids see that. But because it's escalated so quickly, which I believe is large part due to the lack of availability. There are so many positions that are still unfilled. I think that we're going to have to act outside of the current compensation model. So I told you this after the last meeting, but I'm just going to publicly suggest that because it's going so rapidly, we may have to authorize compensation beyond the 60th percentile, just so that it stays at 60 or above long enough to actually be implemented. It's ridiculous how quick it's going up here. And, you know, on the one hand, I don't want to contribute to how fast it's going up, but at the same time, I have to be respectful that that's what the industry is calling for. And if that's what the industry is accepting, we're going to have to do that. And I'm not sure that there's going to be a cry out that, oh, let's apply that everywhere. And I'm not sure that every profession is going through this. I think to some degree, but not nearly as aggressive as yours. So I'm just going to put that on the record. I think we're going to have to look at the model beyond where we've been in the past. I think where we've been in the past has not been sufficient to keep the city service at the level we want to see.
So when I look at the data that you presented today, I think that it speaks volumes about the operation you guys run, and you guys do a great job, and we really appreciate everything you guys do for us to keep us safe and feeling like we live in 70% of us feel like we are safe everywhere. I feel I'm part of that 70%. As I look at that, you know, last year we talked a little bit about retention versus, you know, recruitment and what strategies we take. And I think last year the intention was that let's take care of our own to ensure that we don't lose folks because of the costs you presented and everything. Are we still in that boat? I mean, I don't know if I'm wrong, but I thought I read somewhere like with Seattle, they're offering like $25,000 sign-on bonuses and stuff like that. Obviously, we don't want to cause this compression. We're not the Chaz, right? We don't have the, we don't want that. Walmart would be terrible to take over, I think, but.
You know, and as I said to you, yeah, I gave you those in some of those incentives, right? Mm-hmm. And we're seeing that not to that level, but we are seeing it in Davis County. The one thing that always worries me about using the recruitment incentive is that we're incentivizing people to come here, but not the ones who have stayed.
I agree.
You know, and I look at it and think if we can incentivize the ones who are here and get them to want to stay, historically, they are our best recruiters. Mm-hmm. So they're the ones who come out and say, look, I know maybe you're going to make a couple bucks less here, but come over. You're going to love this culture. You're going to love being part of this department. And that has been one of the best things we've had is our own people reaching back to their friends and peers and saying, you know, come give this a try. Historically, that's been really good for us. You know, another thing, Councilmember Malm, that you mentioned was, you know, how do we get more people interested in it? And one of the things I think we're pretty proud of in our department is the number of people with Syracuse ties who work in our department. And it's been four of the last 5. Does that sound right, Austin? For sure. And more than that, if you go back through the whole line of the department, I mean, you know, seems to be that Syracuse's sons and daughters that are interested in this want to come back and serve here.
I think you also have to approach it not just from like where you preach to the kids, you know, the goodness of cops and everything, but it's parents who are skeptical of their children wanting to go into that field. At least parents I know who are like, no, I could never let my son or daughter do that. And that's really another tough nut to crack of how do you change that perception. So I'm grateful.
because of what they're bombarded with. when they
Right,
see it,
yeah, and
Much
they
like
s-
the military.
And they're more aware of it than maybe a kid is. And so sometimes they'll dissuade children from doing that. Grown children, I should say, but
My youngest actually was interested, and I called you and said, how young can they be to do a ride along or something? Because I'm proud of our certain level of service, and I would be proud to have him use you as an example. Of course, because he's still too young to do that. I mean, the only reference he had is our retired officer Penrod, and we loved him because he was a great example to kids. And I hope to see that continue throughout the, not just him by name, but all of the people here have been really strong examples. And I do want to see that.
I think your statistics saying that how many felt like they were treated with respect, and usually they're the ones who are getting caught doing something not so great. So that's really good numbers.
Well, it can even just be a matter of someone who got stopped for speeding.
Right, but
know,
still, you don't
yeah,
love that cop that just stopped you.
No, but I
So,
mean, there
but-
is a big, I do believe there is a portion where you can say, look, I realized what I got, what I did. I
Right.
didn't like the fact that I got a citation, but the the officer
Yes.
treated me like a person.
And I think that interaction goes such a long way, because then when they go home and they tell their kids or whatever,
Yes.
hey, these guys are not like what media is trying to tell you.
Well, there's a lot to that because last week I was asked to speak at the local junior high here in a civics class. And one of the kids said, I actually got cornered by an officer for vandalism. And the teacher said, well, did you do it? He said, no. But that person also said, but the cop was really cool to me. He listened to me. He realized that I didn't actually do it. And he was really cool. So, and, they said, well, the other places they'd lived, because apparently they've recently moved here. Other places I lived, I'd ended up in jail waiting for my parents or something. So, yeah, I mean, I think that our officers are very influential in the way that they handle things. And I'm very proud of them. And I want to say that, for you and all your officers, I want them to know that that does go very far in helping change the perception. Not that I want any kid let off, because I don't think they were let off. I think that it sounded like the resolution was you were in the wrong place at the wrong time, so you got questioned. And they should have been, but they also were given some mutual respect to say, okay, there's really no evidence that you did something, so we're going to treat you like a decent person. And that spoke volumes.
I was talking to my brother and his next door neighbor. They're both cops. One of them was with Layton, the other one was with Layton and went to Farmington just recently because of some of these issues we're talking about, which based on your data kind of seems counterproductive for him to move to Farmington, but there were other more cultural related issues for him. And one thing he said was that maybe didn't bear out in your data here was I listened to the scanner at night and listened to dispatch and such, and Syracuse has cool calls is what they had indicated. Syracuse actually has more cool calls than you would expect, for an officer. Cool calls probably don't mean what we think is cool calls.
Or the older you get being an officer.
Yeah, wear your knee shirt and everything.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, don't like it, but that's what volumes to me, that it's not what we're safe because we don't see what happens and that it gets prevented before it gets to us. And I think that's the cool part for me, is that we don't have to deal with it. We're not the ones who have to respond at the middle of the night, so anyway.
We're also fortunate to have we have a great community. Let's be honest. We can never, this isn't a one side issue of this, that we have a great community.
So one thing I want you to take away from this is that it's a serious consideration for council. I believe we've heard that from the three of us here, and I think that we've heard it in the past from the others as well. That
I can tell it to you if you want.
and Jordan apparently would like to tell us. Go ahead, Jordan.
Well, I actually did want to just chime in. It's hard to get a break as everyone's talking, but as I've been going through and kind of looking at all of this, I think a lot of this is due to, like has been discussed, with regards to wages have been stagnant for so long. I know they're going up all over. I want to make sure that all the departments know that we see them. But to Dave's point, we do understand that especially in the police right now, and I think as we go through all the rest of the departments, we'll see something similar, that the stagnation is finally coming to an end, and we as a city council need to find ways to address that. But I do want to just let all of the officers I see in the audience know that you guys are awesome. We appreciate you. We want to make sure that you guys can live. We love that a lot of you live in Syracuse. We want to try and make sure that you guys are all comfortable and don't have to get second jobs to support your families. So we see it. We're going to try and fix it. We just got to figure out how. And thanks for the biggest thing. Thanks for being patient with us. We know government is slow, and we know we have amazing individuals, and we're going to do the best we can to try and make sure that you guys are all taken care of.
Thanks, sir.
I think everybody needs a second job to live in Syracuse right now. Like,
I will say this to the officers here, though. The problem is real and it's not an easy solution. And so please understand that we are sincerely going to work this problem, but this is not an easy fix. We live in a city where people 5-cent raise on your utility bill and people freak out. So nobody wants to pay more, and we're under the legal obligation to operate in a balanced budget. So we've got some work to do, and we're going to have to figure it out.
Yeah,
but it's just not going to be easy. That's all you need to know. It's not like I could just say, "Oh, this is easy. Let's fix it." It's going to take some work.
And a concern that will be had going forward is that housing prices in Syracuse are getting beyond what an officer can afford. Anybody
getting beyond what anybody can
afford.
So
I can't afford my house.
I don't know.
If I had to buy it again.
Right.
Me too.
I don't know how that's going to affect the future of, like you said, Syracuse ties working here. So
yeah, it's going to take some tough tax implications, some tough growth implications.
Well, as you all know, I mean, this is one of those things that happens with any city that's hitting kind of that critical point of growth, where it's like, look, the need for the services comes before that commercial component is really in place to pick that up, So if that, I understand that gets tricky, but it's like, we project and you say maybe 5 years down the road that we'll be able to level out because we'll have a commercial element that can bring that on. But that, you're right. The unfortunate part of that is we as citizens are going to bear most of it.
Jordan, it's not only difficult for you to break in, it's difficult for anybody here to break in. Now, Brody has some mechanical things he'd like to discuss with the council.
Yeah, so just to set up, you want to have a vote in December, right? That's what we talked about at the last meeting. So we do need to set up.
We need more information before we can do that.
Right. So there's a discussion about, I think it was 10% at the last meeting. There's some dynamics here of how that would work. So I'm just going to pick out the police officer one as an example here. So this is the benchmark data. Those are the comparison cities on the left, the wage scales in the middle, the minimum, maximum. And in the red is what we talked about at the last meeting, and what Garrett's talked about is, even though there's a wage scale, where it says that some of these cities start at say $21 an hour on their scale, they're actually starting at 22, 23, 24. Right. So that's a dynamic that is sort of outside of the policy that we gotta address, because it's starting to create to where there's like two alternate realities existing, right? There's what they're saying they're paying, and then what they're actually paying. And we talked about how we'll revisit the policy. So for the December meeting and the vote, if we do across the board 10%, like what was talked about, If you look at where it says 60th percentile,
Yeah.
so right here, right?
Yeah.
And then you've got the hourly rate below that. That's just a conversion. The existing wage scale where we're at today is in the red. So that 1925. So in order to get to the reported wage scale, 60th percentile would be 12.9%.
Okay,
In order to get up to where
what's the legitimate?
yeah, to where they're starting, that's over here on the right, that's the 20.8.
20%.
Yeah. So in order to fix this in a couple of steps, mechanically, I think, you talked about the 260,000, which is the 10% across the board. So we can move everybody up 10% in the scale now, starting now, and then work through the policy and how we're going to fix the rest of it for when we normally do this, which is July.
For July.
Yeah. I don't know. That's kind of
I'm doing
kind of a
6-month
methodical
increments.
approach.
So that's kind of what we did the last time. It was a partial in July and then January or
Yeah.
whatever. And now we're
And the
having to
reason
adjust because it didn't work out.
the reason for it, there's I mean, you can go more than 10 now,
Mhm.
right? Some of the positions that are reported actually don't jump more than 10. They're at 8 or
Right.
9.
Yeah.
The complicating factor with the police officer 1 though is when you look at where they're actually hiring people, it starts running into our police officer 2 and 3 scales.
Because they're accounting for years of service, or what are they?
No, so
No.
it's basically saying, like we talked last week, where there's some of these that are paying the amount that the average of this would be it's basically more than what we would start our bottom DO3 at.
Yeah,
So
they're
it's kind of
effectively
like
hiring
it-
you at a higher level because of the need.
Yeah.
And that's
And
the,
then, the guy that's been working there 3
And-
years is going,
And as we said, kind of what Brody was alluding to, I think, is that, look, some of these is a matter of saying, we know what the bottom ones are. What we can't get is all of that stuff in the middle,
yeah,
right? And so that's where the guess comes in and where it compounds by the fact that the bottom raises so much.
there was we received a paper from the mosquito abatement about wages going up in county, and they're doing it on the lower portion, they're posing a higher amount, like it was 12, middle was 8, and the upper 6.
Upper admin was lower or something like that, right?
Yes. And so everyone was still getting raises, but it was helping out across the board, but also stopping the bleed. So I don't know if that's something to consider, because what they were talking about is that a lot of times when you give those raises to the higher guys, you lose like so much of your budget. And so instead of going straight across, adjusting more in increments.
Yeah, and there's different theories with that.
Right.
But yeah, if you're it's certainly if you're trying to get the bottom wage scales the most help, then
Yeah.
that's one way to do it.
It just depends on where your need is.
okay,
What it tends to do if you do it over time
Yeah.
consistently,
You get a
you
compression.
just start squeezing everybody.
Yeah.
okay, so
makes
I want to
sense.
clarify a couple of things. What you're saying to me, and this is,
To do an overall.
what you're saying to me is that it's over 20% to get to where you think the 60th percentile is of what's being reported in the flyers and things.
Yeah,
Okay,
and then it's 12 to 15% for what their actual wage scales are.
right. But we kind of know that's false if we believe the flyers.
Yeah.
Okay, so the reason that I'm trying to clarify this is because we have the other problem in that it's been reported that this is also on the agenda of several other departments that have not tried to recruit yet. At what they're hoping to get is a increased wage as well, which moves that needle even higher.
The dollar figure.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
so,
this year we'll be looking at fire department and park and rec
yeah,
in addition to police.
right. And we know that there's challenges both of those places as well. Okay, so the first question is, let's say for a minute that we took this 20% plus number. Is there a way to find that in our budget over the next 6 months? Or is that not even there? It's not even there. So legally, we have no way to really address that number to this fiscal year.
We could adjust the budget. We can always be done.
I mean, you can dip into your fund balance, but it's not there starting.
It's
July.
not there. Yeah, it's not continually there. Okay,
So you'd be kind of committing
future,
your council.
yeah, beyond what the
what is
expectation
currently
is.
within, making sure that
Yeah,
money's
the bounds
there.
of what we
Okay,
currently have in the coffers.
Which, yeah, that's what you do. And that's why I say, you know, by doing it in a couple of steps, then we'll be able to work through the comprehensive budget.
So you're saying,
so you can
start
do,
with the 10%.
you can do the 10 or thereabouts, whatever, however you want to slice that now. And then since we got to work through the rest of this and some of our policy issues, maybe we can do that through January to April and then have it ready for the budget starting July. for everything
So
else.
just out of curiosity, is there any benefit to, instead of just doing a blanket 10%, you know, 10% of $10 is a lot less than 10% of, say, 20 or $30. Can we just look at, because I want to make sure that everyone gets the adequate compensation, but maybe it is the 10 or 15 or 20% for the PO1s. And then if the PO2s who are, you know, making more an hour, so, you know, at that point, 8% is the same as 10% for a PO1. Just look at the steps so that we can try and make sure they all get the increase. But I feel like just doing a blanket 10% for everybody, it doesn't really benefit the PO1s like it does the PO3s. So I want to try and make sure that we do an equitable adjustment so that we don't run out of budget, but we're allowed to take care of our police officers.
That's what I was talking about before.
Yeah, that's what Corinne was saying.
yeah.
Okay.
And, well, I mean, the hard reality is like 10% for you maybe takes care of 6 of your PO1s. And that's the tough part. I don't discount at all the service of the top level, but it could fund a lot of the bottom levels all together. And I don't, if we don't have the money, I got to legally find it first. Can't give away what we don't have.
So, I mean, a couple of things I would tell you about it. I know that sitting up there, it always sounds like, you know, it feels like I have to be arguing and it's like people envision me arguing for my money. And I'll tell you right now, that's not the point. It's not my primary concern. What I would say is that as we talk about, look, PO1s, okay, that's a very small number within our department right now. And it's the people that we would to some degree be looking to recruit. But if you go back to the concept of what we're saying, where we always have to keep our core as the foundation of what we do with this. So if we start doing things where we bring people in and it moves up into the compaction level within those things above it.
Yeah, we can't allow that to
Not
happen.
going
I'm
to
kind of
sit
looking
well
at
with the ones who have been
1,
there.
2, and 3, all of them have to be a kind of addressed, but there's a point where I start to say, okay, maybe maybe to do 20% for 1, 2, and 3 means I can't do 20% for chief. And I'm not discounting that at all, other than I don't know where we get the extra 20%.
Yeah, we just have to see the numbers though, because I mean, at that point, then that compaction occurs right at the sergeant level. And
right.
everything
Somewhere
else
it does.
it just
Somewhere it
catches up to
does,
itself.
and that's the question.
And you know, the way these things, these market adjustments work, some might be moving faster than others. Like some positions are moving faster than others. So you might get up to like the sergeant, lieutenant, and in fact we have it.
And
I'm
what
not
if,
sure what it
what if
was,
you could
but-
do maybe a combination, overall a percentage raise for everyone, and then an additional per what's needed for that area that you're in
So,
need of keeping and retaining and all of that.
Yeah, I mean,
Kind of
again, you
combo.
guys will come up with the solution that you want. What I asked you,
Thanks.
what I asked you to do with this in reality was create sort of a stopgap with it. We realize that there are problems in the pay scale that are there, that maybe all the information's not factual, that it's not complete, right? The idea with this is like, look, put the money that we already identified to the problem.
Yeah.
And then we have, as Brody said, between December and April to address that issue, to figure out what that issue is going to be and how, quite frankly, I mean, I don't see this being just a policy that can be dealt with through the police department, because I think you're gonna, and you
agree.
can't go through the effort of putting grandma requests out for every single one of these to figure out what it is. We're gonna have to figure out some other solution with it. Maybe that's the case.
That's one of the issues we'll have to talk about is the
Yeah.
administrative work
Yeah.
that it's becoming to get
So I
accurate
guess
data.
my point is that I'm not even sure we have a stopgap number at this point, but I don't think it's even possible to solve this problem in December. I think there's so much work to be done that whatever we can do in December is only going to be part of the resolution. And
Well, that's what
I hate to
I'm
tell you that,
Stopgap.
No, but I mean, that's legitimately, that's what I asked you for. And
and
knowing that was going to be the case. I mean, that's what I asked you for. This is a matter of like, let's
but I want
let's
you
show
to
the
know,
commitment and let's make it harder for people to make that decision. They already like where they work.
Right.
Now let's make the money
I
not
also-
quite so drastic of a difference.
Right, and I also believe that people who know you're gonna try to do right by them will wait to see what that is.
I
They
guess I
will-
just want you to know that
Yeah.
could I fix it and I saw a path forward, I would act now, but I don't see a complete solution yet.
Hence the stopgap.
Yeah.
Get it- Let the dust settle a little bit. Hopefully by April, we have more.
I don't want to
information at
put
our
it off.
disposal.
I just want to,
No, I think that's the prudent way to address this, to me. Because
So
it
what
ties
is
into a
the-
bigger
What is the
picture.
stopgap percentage? 'Cause I think we've all agreed that, you're gonna have to fix this, Dave, over the next 6 or 7 months.
So taking a look at these numbers, which one is the one we're shooting for? Just trying to make sure
Yeah,
I'm
so
reading
if
it
you look on
correctly.
these charts.
Is it the
um,
one in the middle
The one that
or the
says.
right?
So the PO one is different. So let me go to that different one. So here's the
Okay.
sergeant. The 60th percentile is that number
Right,
and that number. That's the one we're
Okay.
trying to get to. Here's,
right. So is it the 8.2 overall? Is that? and
It's
that
just
was
the
a little
range on the high and
confusing.
low.
yeah, so sometimes the middle, I mean, the beginning wage moves faster than the top.
Right, that
And
makes sense.
So the beginning
bottom
wage
wage is
has gone
11.
up 11, but
Okay.
the top has gone up 8.
Okay, because some of them, it's most of them is the higher one is moving
Yeah.
faster.
And then this is
Okay.
when you get into that concept of saying, look, we know that the PO1s are off, and it doesn't seem to make sense that somebody's going to raise their PO1s 33% and leave
Right.
those others in place. But I can't show you what the number is because we don't have it, because they didn't reply to the grandma requests. So,
Okay, but see, like on the next one, PO2, you have a 1.9 and then an 8.6 at the top. So there's a pretty big
Mhm.
difference. So overall though, just trying to jot them all down, taking an average of all of them.
where are our
Um,
top positions at? How far off? Because there comes a point where you just run out of money.
Where
Are
are
they-
About like the
so-
administrative.
What you saw, that they
The
were,
chief,
I'm talking about-
14.9. 14.8. Right behind you.
So
about
there's-
14.
Right behind you.
so somewhere between 1% off and 15% off. Perfect.
Now that
So
PO2
good.
number, the dynamic we're finding with the PO2 number is there's a couple
This is
cities
not-
in our benchmark who are actually hiring rookie, first year police officers out of the
As
academy
PO2s.
at PO2. And
sounds
so their number is now in our PO1 because it's the same recruit.
Gotcha.
And so
Interesting.
that's why the PO2 number probably
Needs to go
doesn't
away.
show as much
Yeah.
increase because
And I misspoke, the military, it's federal jobs, 2 steps.
So there's no way we can act on this as a consent item. It's gonna take
Oh,
discussion.
Definitely.
All right. I'm just gonna have to do a lot of homework.
Bang
between
your
now and
heads
then.
and take a look at all these percent.
Can we get some actual weighted numbers for what it would look like at 10% as far as total budget? I know last week we had to.
Yeah, based on
present some-
how many are in this position.
Yeah, just to
and
give
how
us an
that-
idea of what that cost looks like.
Yeah,
That would be helpful. 'Cause
260,000.
that's the
I
total.
thought that's what we ended up at last time, right? It was 260 for the 10%.
Wow.
10%.
That would, and again, that's that would be the coming year, about 160 for the remainder of this year.
Gotcha.
I
So
thought,
the one-
right,
I
yeah,
thought you
so-
meant that lets you see how much each position gets.
Even though we're.
No,
you're talking about
yeah,
total.
specifically, yeah, the
December
total,
when we vote?
Okay,
total
yeah.
big
You're saying
picture,
like
what
the
it's gonna
remainder
be.
of December?
And then just
Or
add
are
in
you saying for
parks
the next 6
fire
months?
and
7 months still.
All right, so
It's till July.
Oh, okay.
I don't know that I'm
Wouldn't be
gonna,
quite that much because by the time you do it in December, there's probably at least one, maybe
Dave,
two more pay
bring us to
periods
a
that have
close.
come.
Yeah,
on.
I'm trying.
Right.
All right, so I
In
think that
range.
Okay.
there's gonna have to be more discussion on this, so I don't think we can solve it tonight. I think we've heard everybody's intentions. I would make a motion that we end this item because we can't solve it tonight.
Cassie, let's put this on the agenda for the December business meeting for a discussion item and a possible vote on something that we decide that evening.
Steve, were you?
Hey, man,
Yes.
if we're gonna have a budget opening,
Oh, you need to
I know I kind of
advertise.
need like a number.
So we can advertise what
Should we
our
say-
intentions are.
Could we say up to 10% then? And then, I mean, because I don't,
Yeah, I think that'd be a good. one.
decent, okay.
And I'd probably do the 160 for the remainder of the year.
Whatever that,
and then adjust from there.
are you counting for this extra week it took us to decide?
If you remember last meeting, we had
covered another
60,000. in
Yeah.
the budget.
We covered November.
12 cents.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. Any further discussion?
What, yeah, just be prepared. What would the option be to bridge one more month in December? I'm not saying I want to, I'm just saying that I really want a more complete solution, and I'm afraid we can't get one by December. And so it may take another, I don't know.
But I think, weren't you saying, Chief, that, I mean, realistically, the dust isn't gonna settle even beyond December, so, I mean, April, by budget season, we should be, seems that action would be.
We're gonna have to come up with a plan
Yeah.
in the first couple of months of the year.
Yeah, that's my
for
concern with
next
why
year.
December would not necessarily get us there quite yet, but. I don't know.
On the stopgap, I mean, we talked about sales tax as an option. The growth we're seeing, I'm comfortable saying 160,000 growth in sales tax for the remainder of this fiscal year.
Okay,
We could cover with that. It's just beyond that. especially for-
yeah, I mean, we can make no commitment tonight. I'm just saying I'm uncomfortable that I don't see as firm a solution in place, and I would like to, but maybe, I don't know, we'll see where we are.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that may take some time. And that's what the chief was saying, that, kind of a stopgap is really what's needed now. Otherwise, we could wait until we have a full solution in the spring. But
Okay,
What, just one more question I was gonna ask, and I forgot to ask this last week, but is there something the city needs to do to initiate a transit room tax if we want to accept that and that moves forward? We need to do something to officially.
I believe so. I'd have to-
It's with the
Okay.
county.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's like you pass. an
It's like a
ordinance.
new sales tax.
It's just an ordinance, just,
So we have to do something.
thanks.
Jordan, do you have anything else?
No, I think that it's been pretty well addressed. I hate how long everything takes, but we want to make sure we do it right. So,
You want to go to bed?
yeah, it's almost 10 here.
Yeah.
so before we adjourn, I just want to make one comment, and that is there was an accusation made here tonight, and I want to be very clear on the record that I have corrected everyone and said that even until tonight, I can't even be called mayor-elect. And I have taken no steps or actions. And I have told people who've asked that I can't until January, and I won't.
I appreciate the clarification.
But I don't know where I did no such thing. It's a little offensive.
Well, don't blame her. If you want to put his blame somewhere, blame it here. But my concern was I didn't want to put the staff
I respect
into a
that.
thing. So I was offering you the opportunity to meet with them without me and be able to begin, because it will give you a head start on next year if you can start 6 weeks early. So
My apologies for making the
we're all
world
good.
red.
We're all good.
Mayor and
Okay.
council, thanks for my opportunity. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Run away.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any
Motion to
other
adjourn.
discussion? We're adjourned.
None.
Thanks, everyone.